Hello friends and welcome back to the studio. This is Susie with Gemini Connect, and today I'm talking about the Feiyutech WG2X wearable gimbal. This is a brand new gimbal to me, but it's actually been out on the market for a couple of years. But the best part about it is that you can wear it on a chest mount. And if you've been following this channel or our vlog channel, Gemini Discover, then you probably know that my partner Martin and I always go out on adventures. We travel a lot and we hike a lot. And we often use our GoPro or an action camera to vlog. But the thing about our travel vlogging style is that it's not always conducive to using a traditional grip or a tripod and holding the camera out at an angle. A lot of times we're doing something like hiking or climbing or even cooking, and we want both hands free. So in this case, this is where this wearable gimbal comes in really handy because we can mount the camera, get really steady footage, and use our hands to do other things. So let's start off with some basics about this gimbal. It retails for $169 US and it's compatible with action cameras. But here's the catch. It only works so far with the GoPro Hero 8 and below. It does not work with the GoPro Hero 9. So if you're looking for a gimbal solution for the Hero 9, unfortunately, this is not going to be it. But if you have an older model GoPro, such as this Hero 8, which is what I'm using right here, or a similarly sized action camera, then you can totally use it with this gimbal. The gimbal's payload is 130 grams, and the gimbal itself is pretty lightweight. It weighs 238 grams without the camera included. It's powered by a rechargeable battery that you can plug in via micro USB to recharge, and the battery itself lasts about 2.5 hours. And as for the gimbal itself, it's actually quite cool because it actually detaches from this chest mount. And when it's detached, you can see that the gimbal itself is quite small. And it's really nice because at the bottom, there's a 1/4 inch tripod thread, which means you can take almost any standard tripod, such as this Rode tripod, which I absolutely love. I've been using it a lot. And you can screw it onto the bottom of the gimbal. And now you have what looks like a traditional handheld gimbal. So I love the flexibility of being able to mount this gimbal on anything from a tripod to a chest mount such as this. But speaking of the chest mounts, even though this is labeled as a wearable gimbal, the chest mount is not included. So you want to make sure to either have one already or purchase one. This right here is the GoPro chest mount, which isn't really cheap. It retails for I think $40 US, but there are quite a few other brands that make similar chest mounts like this, and they're available for half price or less. So this gimbal is actually the second generation of the original Feiyutech wearable gimbal, and that wearable gimbal in some ways was actually better. It was actually completely waterproof. This new gimbal is not waterproof, but it is splash proof. So you could use it in maybe a light rainstorm, but you definitely don't want to dunk it in water. However, this newer model is constructed in a way that it's much easier to see the back screen of your camera. Apparently the old model, which we don't have, but this arm was blocking the screen, so it was really hard to see what you were filming or to access the touchscreen. But that has been fixed on the new model. So now let's talk about functionality of this gimbal. Now, because it is a lot smaller than your traditional handheld gimbal, it is missing a few things. Probably the biggest things that I wish it had were a joystick to toggle the gimbal around and also an LCD screen just to verify what mode that we're shooting in. And speaking of modes, there are 4 different modes for shooting with this gimbal. The first mode is pan mode, and you access this by clicking the function button once. And when you do that, the gimbal only turns left and right. There's no up and down tilt. If you click the function button twice, you go into follow mode, and this pans and tilts as you move. So it's kind of like a POV perspective. Click the function button 3 times, the gimbal rotates 180 degrees horizontally. And so this is basically selfie mode, where the gimbal will turn and the camera will now face you. By the way, this gimbal does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in. So you can connect the gimbal to your phone to use the app with it, as well as connect the gimbal to cameras. But it does depend on which camera you have. It won't connect with every camera out there. Okay, now let's talk about that app. So it's called the Feiyu On app, and it's available for both iPhone and Android. I tested it out in Android with my Samsung Galaxy S10, and it worked pretty well. So to connect the gimbal to your phone, all you have to do is power on the gimbal, make sure that the Bluetooth connection is on, then also go over to your phone, make sure that Bluetooth is on, download that Feiyu On app, and power it up. And for me, the phone detected the gimbal right away, and it paired like almost instantly. Now, connecting the GoPro to the gimbal was a little bit trickier. That's done through Wi-Fi, and there are quite a few extra steps to do that. First of all, you want to power on your GoPro, go over to the connection settings for Wi-Fi, and make sure that the band is 2.4 gigahertz. Next, you want to connect your GoPro to the GoPro app first, just to verify that connection. Go into the Feiyu On app and connect a camera. You'll then have to enter the GoPro's Wi-Fi password. If you don't know where this is, it probably depends on which model GoPro you have, but on the Hero 8, all you have to do is swipe down, go over to Preferences, Connections, and Camera Info, and that will display your GoPro's Wi-Fi password. And after that, the GoPro should connect to the gimbal, and then you can control the GoPro using certain buttons on the gimbal. If you single click the mode button, then that switches between photo and video mode, and if you single click the shutter button, then that starts and stops recording or takes a photo. So now let's talk about the image quality that you get when you're shooting with this gimbal. Now, I do think it depends on how you're using the gimbal, as well as how steady you are when you walk. Now, for me, whenever I use the gimbal on the chest mount, I didn't get the best footage necessarily, and I don't blame the gimbal for that. I think it's actually just my style of walking. If you're someone like Martin who does walk a lot more steadily, then this walking gimbal might be a lot more steady for you. But for me personally, I preferred using the gimbal on this little tripod mount and operating it like a regular handheld gimbal. I thought that this footage was super smooth and steady, and the handling was really nice and intuitive. However, if you're using this wearable gimbal and doing some fast action such as running or bicycling or even on a car, then I think that that gives it a lot more steadiness as well, because it eliminates that natural bounce that's in a lot of human walking gaits. Also, if you're wondering, a lot of modern GoPros, including the Hero 8, now come with Hypersmooth, which is built-in stabilization that GoPro initially called the gimbal killer. And in some ways, Hypersmooth really is. Like, you can do quite a bit just using the GoPro with Hypersmooth on and not having it mounted in a gimbal. So does a gimbal like this still apply? And I would say if you're using an older model GoPro, then yes, it does, because Hypersmooth only came out on the Hero 7. So if you're using any GoPro below the Hero 7, then you'll still benefit a lot by having a gimbal like this. And even on the Hero 7, which was the very first version of Hypersmooth, Hypersmooth was good, but compared to where the Hero 9's Hypersmooth is right now, the Hero 7 still is a little bit shaky. So some of the older older model GoPros can still benefit from using the gimbal. But for all of the good things about this gimbal, there are a few cons. The very first one is the fact that it's not compatible with the GoPro Hero 9. So GoPro has been gradually increasing the size of their cameras over the past few models. And this is a problem just because those GoPros then don't fit certain accessories, including this gimbal. And so that probably means if GoPro keeps up with that trajectory, that newer GoPro models also will not fit with this gimbal. So it's not very future-proof. So the second con about this gimbal is how the camera fits inside of the gimbal. So the attachment system has these two thumb screws, and they're pretty finicky, and I often need both hands in order to unscrew them. You have to unscrew that top screw completely just to fit the camera inside. And so it takes a long time and it takes a lot of practice to get used to it, and I really wish that they used a different, easier way to fasten the camera inside of the gimbal. The third con is that because of the way that the GoPro fits inside of the gimbal, it actually blocks the on button of the GoPro. Now this might vary depending on what GoPro model that you're using, but for the Hero 8, which is what I'm using right here, I can't access the on button because it's flush against the gimbal, which is where the camera needs to be in order to be balanced. So I can still access the record button, so if you have the quick start function enabled on GoPro, you can still power the GoPro on and record, but I otherwise cannot access the on button. But other than that, I really like this Feiyutech gimbal because it's the only one that I've been able to find so far that allows you to wear a modern day gimbal. A lot of the older wearable gimbals only work with older model GoPros, and this was one of the only ones I could find for the Hero 8. Still looking for one for the Hero 9. If you guys find one, then please let me know in the comments below. But yeah, I love the flexibility to go hands-free with this gimbal and be able to film my vlogs a lot more dynamically. But let me know in the comments below what you think, if you've tried this gimbal out, if you would try it out, or if you prefer a more traditional gimbal, or maybe no gimbal at all. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.